All right.
All right. I'm here with Michael C. Koch, a former police officer, narcotics detectives of 19 years. Uh, and now you are working at the First Responder Wellness. Yeah.
That's it. Newport Beach, simple
New.
recovery, first responder wellness.
Yeah, man. I cannot tell you how excited I am about this conversation. You were the first. Well, first of all, welcome to the Chase the Vase podcast. And
Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here. Thank you so much, Brock.
Yeah. So I've had the chance to be on your podcast.
You
Loved
sure
it. Loved it. So enjoyable. And it is called the Positive Connections Radio Podcast.
That is it.
You started it in 2018. And your goal was to break the stigma of mental health issues among first responders.
You bet. So, you were episode 54.
54, man. Right on.
Look it up, folks.
Yeah, please do. Please go to it. You are doing big things. And I appreciate the fact that working in law enforcement, having that background, understanding in what direction we need to take this. And what I kind of giggle at a lot of times is this word stigma. Man, I am so confused nowadays what stigma even means. You know, we talk about, hey, we're going to break the stigma, but man, we're doing it.
I think, and I know it's a word, it's thrown around a lot. I throw it around so much, and I love it because it's just a negative outlook that we have in it as a first responder, especially I understand with law enforcement. It's a negative outlook of people wanting to get help. Because we're trained to never give up. We're trained to go out there and have our command presence. However, when we need help, really, truly need help, can we actually show our emotions to our partners? Can we tell them, hey, I'm having these nightmares. That scene really bothered me. It might not have bothered you, but I cannot stop thinking about it. And it's a sign of, at least for me, it was a sign of weakness if I was able to say I have an issue, especially when my drinking got out of control. I wasn't going to say, hey, I can't stop drinking once I start. I can do this on my own. So yeah, the stigma is one of those catchwords. However, I take it super seriously because that kept me sick for a long time, for sure.
Yeah. And you're talking about the stigma within. So we're going to be finite in this and talk about within the law enforcement community.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I'm with you. I mean, I started in 1997. That's when I got hired. And you were what, 1992?
92, 93, and then 94 full-time. So.
Okay. Always in California?
Always in California, Carlsbad Police Department in San Diego.
Okay. So we were neighbors. So we kind of can shoot the same lingo. I remember that my training came from my superior. I wouldn't even say superiors, but the men that had more time than I did. You know, these 20-year veterans, and man, they looked ragged. They looked ragged. Looking back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, but they were tired. But I remember like going into briefing, I waited for them to respond, and then my response was what they said.
Of course. You wanted to fit in, you know, you're the new guy, you're the green one sitting in the front of the briefing, you know, the front row for a while until you can actually have a couple of years behind you and sit in the back.
Yeah.
Those training officers too, I had a lot of them. Some were crusty. Some of them were, you know, their last 5 or 6 years of, you know, work, and they were just waiting out the clock. They really were. So, and a lot of them taught me really good things to be a really good police officer. But yeah, I would definitely follow their lead because I wanted to make sure that I was doing everything I was supposed to do.
So, Mike, let's fast forward to what you're doing today, because this is going to take us into what I want to do. Is I want to give the end of the story first before we get into the nuts and the balls. I want to know like what you're doing today and why you're doing it.
So, based on everything that I went through, being a cop, dealing with PTS, dealing with addictions. And then getting into recovery and finding recovery and staying in recovery since I started this new life in recovery. What I'm doing now, I am specifically working with first responders in treatment, mental health, PTS, depression, anxiety. A lot of the guys and girls, they're still actually working. They noticed there was a problem, or somebody else did, or perhaps they got a DUI. and they don't know where to turn. Departments don't know what to do with them. They didn't know what to do with me 9 years ago, but now there's a place that I trust, I work with, and it's a legitimate place for just first responders, completely confidential. And I do this so others don't have to suffer in silence. So others can actually get help, be with their peers, speak their truth, talk about all kinds of things with a quote unquote shrink. You know, psychologists back in the day when I was a cop, if you were seeing a counselor, I don't care what you saw. If you saw someone individual one-on-one, you were seeing a shrink, and that was the stigma that I held. I don't want to be associated with that. I don't want anybody to know that I'm seeing a doctor and talking about my feelings. So then they're going to think something's wrong with me. So right now I'm working specifically with first responders, fire, police, EMT, border patrol, you name it. The first responder realm and the peer group is just so powerful because they get to be in a group of their own. And I'm lucky because I'm a first responder, or I worked many years as a first responder, so I get them. And everybody that I work with, the clinicians, the other counselors, the other case managers, they're all completely culturally competent. Some have worked in law enforcement or in that field, fire department, or have relatives that have. So they're really good. And we do look for qualified people to deal with this.
Man, I'm so happy you said that. That culturally competent is so important. And for the listeners out there, that just means these individuals understand, maybe have been through it, maybe are retired, but they understand the profession. So Mike, how important do you think it is for you that first responders attend you go to like an AA for first responders, they go to a therapy with the first responders, that they stay amongst their group and I'm not saying they can't mingle amongst other groups, but it's almost like they do continue with that brotherhood.
Yeah, I think if I get to what you're saying is to get a first responder into recovery, to get them to talk to their partners. Let's say you're at a your firehouse or wherever you're at, and you notice one of your partners is having some problems. You're probably a little bit of maybe domestic issues, but drugs, alcohol, PTS, something's going on. To get that person to trust recovery, and it's not going to be held against them. Of course, it does depend on what department you are. Some departments are way back in the Stone Age. So they say, hey, you get help, you're going to be marked. And they'll tell these people, and I've worked with them. I'm not going to name which ones they are, but hopefully they'll be able to change in the upcoming years. But they'll tell them, like, you're marked now. You're a weaker one now, and we're going to watch you just because you admitted that you had an alcohol or drug problem. So to find a confidential place to get someone actually into the door is the biggest thing. And it takes a lot of courage on their part. Just to walk in the door. It's scary. You're fearful. You don't know what to expect. You don't know if someone's watching you. It's and to get that and gain that trust within walking into first responder wellness the first day, within minutes, you'll feel comfortable. And anybody first responder related that wants a tour, I could set them up with one, and they can come and check us out and see what it's all about. So getting out the door is the big thing. Getting them actually to get help is a big thing.
Yeah, and not only that, but you kind of alluded to it a little bit that even today, if we're seeing somebody, we're marked, right? And marked as a weak one. And what are they telling them? What are they talking about me? What are they sharing about the department? And really, these people, we just need help.
Yeah,
we just need to be around other men and women who understand what we're going through, because it's hard to discuss with the common individual that's struggling with addiction. Like, you need to make a connection with somebody else that has kind of went through that battle with you.
Sure. I'm done telling my story to people that don't get it or are amazed by it, and they want to question me about, well, what was that like? If I talk to another first responder, I don't have to say anything. I'll have to is mention a critical incident. I don't even have to talk about it, and they'll go, I get you. Let's work on something else. We don't have to worry about that. I think to start off with, I started a first responder only AA 12-step group on Sunday nights in 2017, and now it's completely Zoom. All first responders dealing with PTS, even drugs, alcohol. AA was the one I went through because my last thing was actually drug abuse. However, I feel like I fit in. There was more meetings to go to. And general population people, I was always worried about, oh, they're going to know who I am, this and that. Well, once it was all over, I didn't really really care at all because I wasn't a police officer anymore. However, it was still hard to say, yeah, this is what I did and this is what I'm doing now. And some people's jaw would drop. However, when I talk to another first responder, and they get me, especially if they're still working, and their job might be on the line, or they might be getting their year 3 or 4, and they notice, hey, I'm drinking a little bit too much, or yeah, this stuff's starting to pile up on me. I'm getting pissed off and resentful. So, but I think down the road, once you do find your own recovery program, blending in with general population, and even having your command staff, everybody know about it. If you're working a good, positive program, you won't care what people think about you, say about you, because you care about yourself and you know what you're doing. And that's the only, business I have. It's none of my business what you think about me. It's my business what I think about myself.
Yeah. I like that. Well, okay. So if anybody has read your story, Michael, we understand that you were a police officer for 19 years. And they're like,
Yes.
wait a minute, man, you don't get retirement till you're 20. So you got all the way up to that moment, and then you had something happen in your life. And I would love for you to share your story with us.
It was sort of like a midlife crisis, a
Right.
horrible one. It wasn't where I was buying a new car. I lost everything. So you want me to start where I'll start with from the beginning, I guess. Going into law enforcement, drinking was one of my coping mechanisms. Of course, going through college and hanging out with your buddies, crack open a beer, go to a bar, play some pool. It was very part of my culture I grew up with. And also it was totally normal to do. It was something where I didn't consider myself having a problem with it. I didn't have any problem drinking. I drank a lot. I have no problem drinking. The consequences were very slight. I did have a lot of hangovers, but I never got behind a wheel and never got a DUI. I was trying to be careful that way. But going into law enforcement in my 20s, you're tough, you're healthy, you run a lot, you're just getting out of the academy and blowing off some steam, and over time it was fun. It was fun just to relax on my days off. However, when I started to drink towards things that happened at work, using that as a coping strategy to get through it, I would just erase it. And it was the easiest thing to do, to pick up a bottle, pour a glass of whatever it was, and drink it, and get into a different mind space and sort of forget about it. And the problem, of course, never went away, and it usually exacerbated into something more down the road. So, but I was able to maintain for the most part. And first 5, 10 years of being a police officer, didn't have too many problems. I knew I drank excessively. I drank out of control sometimes, and I couldn't just stop at 1 or 2 or 3. I didn't drink for the taste. I didn't drink to socialize. I drank for the effects. And to get me to that point, once I got to that point, it could be 3 beers. I couldn't stop then. My switch was already switched. So by the time I get to 3 beers, I knew that's where I should stay and probably come down and maybe eat some dinner and go to bed, but I would take it to the next level. I didn't want it to end. And that's the world of addiction. 25 to 30% of us suffer from it. One aspect or another was substance use. So, I got promoted to undercover narcotics division. I did great work. I loved what I did. I worked on the search warrant entry team, and it turned into being a SWAT team for our city, and very respectable city. I loved everybody I worked with. It was a legitimate police department. I really did not see anything go on that really I would question me. Only thing that I had resentments for at that time were people that didn't want to go out with me and kick in some doors and do search warrants and arrest people and protect the streets. And so, going into that field, going into narcotics, doing all kinds of different things with them, I loved it. And but also that comes with some damage to your body over time. Broken bones, bruises, sprains, cuts, and I wound up in urgent care quite a few times. And usually the doctor would ask me if I wanted pain medication. And the last thing I wanted to do was to take pain medication, because if it's an opiate, if it's a drug, I don't want to be considered an addict. I already knew I was an alcoholic. I wasn't going to tell anybody about it. I wasn't going to say, hey, I drink too much, I'm a drunk. They saw it in my actions sometimes if I wasn't hiding it, and which most of the time I was secluded hiding. And I kept it away from my peers because I didn't want to let them know I would drink so much. So after several injuries, I got injured bad one time. And this was into my career a little bit. And I needed to be prescribed some pain medication because I was in severe pain. Usually before the pain would be subsided, when I got home, I would drink, 6-pack of beer. I knew the beer was in the refrigerator. That would take away the pain. I'd tape it up and go back to work the next day. I'd go back to work with broken toe or whatever it was. I didn't want to be put behind a desk. I wanted to be out in the field. And this one time they prescribed me Vicodin. Never really heard of it before. Didn't really think about it too much. The opiate crisis was underway. It was starting to get on the street. Pills were on the street. Oxys were on the street. Kids were selling them and stuff. So I knew what was going on, but I needed to take this medication. And when I did take it, I had a spiritual awakening at that time. I thought this was the best feeling I've ever felt. And my pain's gone. And I had this euphoric feeling that I've never felt before. And that was my first taste of an opiate. And so that stuck in my brain. And I didn't stop drinking. However, for my drinking part of it, I wasn't going to go to one of those meetings, those AA meetings. I'd drive by those things and I'd see people, out there and drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes. And I just never really bought it. I never really wanted to be a part of it. I never really trusted recovery, that part. It would just seem too much of the people that I would have arrested. And I didn't want to put my head in there. I didn't want to know anything about it. And in recovery, they call that contempt prior to investigation. When you already condemn something and you didn't do any research on it. I used to research crooks. I'd find people all over the place. I would do investigations and I would spend months before I even made my first arrest, and I would be meticulous in my work, but I wasn't meticulous in my life when I wanted to investigate anything that had to do with me. So if it had to do with my emotions, if it had to do with my feelings or my addictions, I didn't want to know about it. I wanted to stop it on my own. So moving forward, I did get injured quite a bit after that. And I ended up winding myself at a doctor's office a few times and getting prescribed Vicodin. And I would just call it by name. I'd say, okay, I need, nothing else works but this drug, hydrocodone. And they'd prescribe it to me. Who else? I mean, I was a police officer. Would they think I was trying to get these pills that I didn't have any injuries? Who would believe that? And I did. I would go into doctor's offices and I had a little bit of pain, but it wasn't as much. I didn't need anything. All I needed was a Motrin, really. So, I started doctor shopping basically. And that went down a road, a hole that I didn't know how to get out of.
Yeah. So you feel like you got addicted to the first, do you think we have a very similar story as I'm listening to you. I didn't want to miss work either, and I felt like I became addicted to the job. I became addicted to arresting bad guys and addicted to just my team and being there and showing up.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And just think about going to work and you love your job so much, the passion that you have in your job. And I think a lot of people can agree with this too, or understand this. When you first become a police officer, I know police, probably fire, at other first responder fields, you're going to go out and help somebody. I would spend my own time. I don't care how much I'd be spend 12, 15 hours at work, even if I wasn't on the clock. I would do it. I lived it. I slept it. I woke up thinking about it. And it was my life. And a lot of part of my other life sort of took a back seat. My old friends, I stopped calling, stopped associating. They didn't get me anymore. I didn't get them or choose to want to. I felt like I was on a different level. You have to hold yourself to a higher level. That means morality. You're not supposed to go to strip clubs. You're not supposed to hang out with parolees, those type of things, immoral behavior. And I put myself on a higher level, maybe a higher platform. And pretty soon my world was cops or crooks. Anything in between were just common, everyday citizens that were doing their 9 to 5 jobs and weekends off and, a couple week vacation a year. However, I saw the dark side of it, and you did too, and we all do. And the public doesn't see the dark side. They see the things that are on the news that's reported, but a lot of stuff goes unreported because it's just so much. If the people really knew what cops did on the street in the middle of the night, they wouldn't be harping on them so bad. They would have a little bit more understanding. Hopefully, this culture right now, it's just it's insanity. It really is.
Yeah.
So, but with me, I didn't want to get help. I knew that I liked the pills a lot. And eventually it led down to where I was withdrawing from the pills because I couldn't get them from the doctors anymore. Either my 30 pill prescription was gone in 3 days, and I was on day 2 or 3 without having them in my system. And I finally understood exactly what the people that I arrested and worked with, my CIs on the street, had gone through or were going through when they were withdrawing in the backseat of my police car, when I was bringing them to jail and they're crying because they're so sick. And I started having more empathy towards addiction and dependence on it. It is severe misery. I can describe it as the most horrible cold or sickness that I could have had. I felt so bad without it in my system. It was torture going through withdrawals. And the first thing you want to do is not to feel that anymore. And what do? You try to sweat it out alone. You have to go back to work. People are going to know. Family's going to know. And eventually, working narcotics, there was a lot of chances for me to have access to pills. And I ended up taking them. I ended up taking ones that were marked for destruction. And that was horrible. Once I crossed that line, there was no help for me. And I knew that. And I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know where it was going to go. And eventually I knew I would have get caught if I continued doing it. And just living with that moment when I had to do that, it was my choice to do that. But being strung out on opiates is, you don't think normal anymore. You don't think like a normal, clear-headed individual anymore. I don't care what profession you're in. There's no borders on addiction. I don't care if you're a scientist, doctor, politician, whatever you're doing.
So did anybody at work start becoming aware of it? Did they notice it? Were your behaviors change? And I know we've talked about it in our podcast where you're just good at the behavior. You're good at manipulation and lying, but did they catch on?
Like you said, we're trained. I was a trained interrogator. I used to question people. I used to fit in with them, go undercover and act like I'm doing the things that they're doing just so I can build a case and get to the people that they're dealing with, move up the chain. And so I became really great at deception to suspects and then pretty much my peers and my family. And so I was able to lie with a straight face. And I might have even prided myself at the time. However, when it got into addiction, I would be able to look in your face. I'm like, everything's great. I'm fine. No, I had a fight with the wife. Oh, the kids were up last night. That's why my eyes look all blurry. And, I looked like I slept in my undercover car all night, which I did at numerous times that last year in 2011. And they wouldn't question me. I think once you become more senior in whatever job you're doing, the people that come before you or after you, they might be less apt to ask questions. Just look at your training officers that you're sitting in the briefing room, you're brand new and you're following their lead. Are you going to go up to them and question them? Hey, I smell alcohol in your breath, or you look like you were up all night, or maybe you need to go to sleep right now. You look like you've been working a lot and stressed out. So maybe people were unable to approach me, and if they did, they weren't forceful enough to make me break. I think working in the field and people listening right now, working with coworkers that you might suspect something. Maybe if I would have been sat down in an office somewhere, no one else knows, but hey, Mike, I need to talk to you. Come on in at 2 o'clock in the morning. We just need to chat for a little bit and put me on the spot and not maybe threaten me, but say, I noticed something's wrong with you and you're bullshitting me if you're saying nothing's wrong with you. I might have broke that. There was some times I would have done it, and it never happened.
Mike, was it because you wanted to, because you were just so spiraled down, you needed help, or what do you think it was?
Was it because I wanted to stop, or because I wanted?
Because I know in my life, like, nobody confronted me, nobody knew, right?
Yeah.
And there were times I'm like, man, I wish I could tell somebody, I wish I could get some help, but I was embarrassed.
Yeah. Yeah. I was too. Yeah, I really did wish that there was someone that was there that would be able to open up. And there were. I know they're looking back, and I knew working with them, if I would have went to a few people that I really respected, they would have got me the help I needed, confidential. I trusted them enough. I just refused to do that. I didn't want to, fall on the sword that way. I wanted to be able to take care of myself. Here's a little story. I haven't really told too much. This is what happened right before the very last part of my career as a police officer. I was pretty strung out as an undercover narcotics detective, and I was even afraid to even carry my gun. I'd have it in the car. I used to always carry it on my hip. I'd do the lawn with my gun. Everywhere I went with gun, there was a gun everywhere. And so I was afraid even to be associated with it, because I knew that, man, one wrong mistake and they're going to test me, and they're going to find out that I have stuff in my system that I shouldn't have. And so I had this confidential informant, and during the last year of 2011, this informant worked with me for a little while and did some really good cases, and I got some really bad people off the street. And this person was addicted to a drug, and I was able to get this person out of the state of California into another state, and they started their life in recovery. And so I did have their phone number, and they had talked to me one day, called me, and I liked this informant. It was a he. All right, I said it. Well, he was a good guy, and he definitely needed some help, and he got sober somehow in another state. And he called me up, and he told me all these great things. I've been sober for 4 months. I gained 45 pounds. I'm working a job. I'm doing really great. And I'm listening to him on the phone, and I'm tearing up. I'm starting to cry, and I'm happy for him. I'm really happy for him, sincerely. However, I wanted to say so bad. I remember thinking, if you only knew, man, I have a problem. I need help. And I wanted to say that, and I didn't, for obvious reasons. And I hung up. I wished him good luck, and I hope that he can continue his process. But for me, I was just so deep into it. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to get help, but I didn't know there was anything that was safe, confidential, that no one would know. And then plus, man, when I'm stealing drugs from the police department out of evidence, it's over with. There's no help for that. I knew I deserved to go to prison. I knew I deserved to lose my job. I had no passion anymore. I gave that right up. And it was just a spiral. And I felt so ashamed and so horrible about it all. We signed an oath that we're going to serve and protect, and we're going to do all these things and hold ourselves to a higher level. And I just blew it all. I flushed it down the toilet. So, looking at that, I had no more passion about my job anymore. And I knew eventually they would find out, because I made enough mistakes trying to cover what I was doing up. And I knew once they did, there would be 3 options for me. Either I would run, I would give up and fall on the sword and say, this is what I've been doing, or I would take my life. I would kill myself. And I looked at it very closely, and I already made a decision. I wasn't going to commit suicide. I wasn't going to do that act, because I needed to face the fire. I couldn't do it on my own. I didn't know what to do. I was just waiting for them to find out, basically. I really was. I tried to get help, and I went to a 5-day detox center, and that was an eye-opening experience. And then I found out about the program of AA and what the 12 steps were. And I thought, all my life, I never knew what this really was. This is what recovery is about. And then the following week, they found out that I was taken from evidence, and it was all over. And so there was nowhere to run. I never thought about running. I thought about how it would look like, and it didn't look too good. And I just told them, this is what I've been doing. And that's the very first time when I'm sitting in an interrogation room or interview room, and they're all around me, and I was crying my eyes out, and they've got a needle in my arm taking my blood, and they got the tape recorder going, and all my partners were there, and the chief walks in, and I see him down the hall, and this is just so surreal. I knew everything was over with. Part of me was so devastated. The other part of me was relieved that finally everybody knows. And this was the first time in my life that I ever said out loud, I'm an addict, I need help. I knew it was too late, but it felt good still to say it. And everybody knows now, I need help. And I did get help. So, and I found recovery. They sent me away. I did lose my career. I was terminated. And during the first 3 months of sobriety, I got a divorce. My wife just said, okay, well, good luck to you. And I had 2 young children at the time. And I went through bankruptcy, went through criminal proceedings. And, before I was charged, I pled guilty to 1 count of theft. I don't know how it got down to that, but I was up on 47 felony counts they had me on.
Wow.
And my attorney said, okay, Mike, well, you talk to the police, you pretty much spilled everything out. There's no defense for us. We just have to fall on the sword and fall at the mercy of the court. And I vowed to myself, I didn't care if I was going to go to prison. I sort of expected, probably 80% of me thought I did, that I would stay sober. I would work this program of recovery, and I will stay sober no matter what, and get out and live my life. And thank God I didn't have to go to prison. I did lose a lot, and I had to start my life over again with absolutely nothing at all. And I had to have family, and I moved back in with my mom for a while, and just picked up the pieces and got my sobriety program on point, and got a sponsor, went to meetings, worked the steps, read the big book, did all these things. I changed my life. I incorporated it into my life. And then about 1.5 years later, I got a job in recovery at a detox, and I went back to school and got a certificate to be a drug alcohol counselor, and proceeded in that, and then started working in 2017 with first responders only, and decided I wanted to reach out throughout the country to find places where departments can send their officers for confidential help. Because when I got into the office of the EAP lady, they didn't know where to send me. They were like, oh, we'll go to the San Francisco area. There's a place. I'll get you out of San Diego County. And there was nothing. They had nowhere to go. So one of my main missions when I first got sober is someday I'm going to be able to give it back, and I'm going to be able to provide a qualified referral to an officer that needs help, that I trust, that I've vetted, so no one else has to suffer in silence anymore. You don't have to. And of course, if you're starting to do criminal stuff when you're working, yeah, definitely you're going to have some problems. But, for the most part, we're dealing with things, and all we have to do is raise our hand and say, look, I need help.
Do you wish the department had handled it differently with you? I know that's kind of a catch-22 question, but I think that's what a lot of officers fear.
I don't know what they would have done prior to the criminal actions I did as a police officer before it got to that point. However, the chief at the time, he went in front of the news, a couple of days after it, and it got out in the press, and he told the news, he goes, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. And I saw the news clipping, and I said, thank God they're not going to hide any of this thing. It's all in the public. Don't hide it. Tell everybody what happened and then let it be, because I'm going to stay sober. I'm going to figure out what to do with my life and get through this. So they handled it exactly way our department should handle it. They should be, very clear and open and honest about what's going on, not try to hold back something. Early on, no, they didn't know. And I think bringing out awareness, what I'm doing right now, I think people that are working in the upper command, maybe lieutenants and captains and chiefs, they might be able to listen to what I have to say and have a little bit more empathy for their officers, saying they're dealing with a lot of stuff. Yeah, I dealt with stuff too, and there's no help for me. But however, let's break that cycle. They break that cycle now. With the new guys coming out, there's a whole new world out there, and they have to be prepared.
Yeah, totally. Man, I just feel like I was on a roller coaster with you, brother. I could, yeah, totally, man. I can totally empathize and understand, because somewhere in there, you lose your way.
Yeah.
You get lost in it, man. And I know I was blessed. I was blessed that it happened after I retired, just circumstance. I mean, I'm lucky, but I, like you, the first time I tried an opiate was my first knee surgery. And it was like, man, 2001 or something, early on in my career. And I remember, or not, 98. And I remember the euphoria and the excitement I got from it. I'm like, man, I could get addicted to this stuff, and that sparked me. And then I was okay with it and got back to work and got back to my routine and normal life. But I, man, when you said that, that took me right back. And when your department and when people don't understand addiction, it's hard. So raising this awareness, sharing your story. I wondered if you had gone back to that police department and shared your story or not.
Not yet. No, I've been in contact with a few people over the last 9 years. It's a lot of shame involved in it. There was so much shame. I didn't want to leave the area. My part of me wanted to say, just to get the hell out of Dodge. However, I had nothing to hide anymore. I wanted to show myself that I'm going to stay sober and someday give back. So I would definitely, Carlsbad Police Department is a great department. I loved working there. I love the people working there. I think a majority of them were completely shocked. They didn't believe, first of all, that I would steal drugs or that I would take drugs, or that I suffered from any kind of issues with alcohol or drugs. So I kept that pretty well hidden. So yeah, I've spoke at a lot of police departments. I speak down in San Diego to the managers meetings for the new lieutenants, and they have to go through a 3-week training. And in fact, the current chief of police, Neil Gallucci of Carlsbad Police Department, speaks down there. And I do speak at like week 3 during the wellness program. And I go sort of through my story here, and I try to answer questions of what they can look for and what could have been done differently in my case. And realistically, if they would just understand what we go through out there, they do, because they lived it. However, just have more empathy that these things are possible. And just because you suffer from PTS, nightmares, and you can't talk about it, and you feel like it's a weakness and you don't want to tell anybody, have a good peer support program. That is the most important thing for a police department. San Diego Police Department has a great peer support program. San Diego Fire Department does also. They're like models. My department at the time was very small, and I didn't trust that my information would be kept confidential. So I never went to them. It was an option, but at that time I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like there was any kind of help. So nowadays, if you have a department, put things on the wall where people can see. Here's a number, 1-800-COP line. You can 24/7 service. You can call a nonprofit organization. It's not going to be recorded. No one's going to know. There's a lot of organizations out there that can help you, and it can remain, your secret until you're ready to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Michael, man, I'm blessed. I'm so thankful for your story. But more importantly, I'm thankful for what you're doing today, for giving back. And if there's an officer, firefighter, military vet, anything listening, how can they get a hold of you? What's the name of your program? One more time.
I'd love for them to call me, get a hold of me. If they want to reach out and look under www.firstresponder-wellness.com. They can go to the website and check it out. I'm on there. There's a lot of that. You can look at the whole organization of First Responder Wellness by Simple Recovery, and then reach out. My email address, you can email me at mkoch1515@gmail.com, or just get a hold of me through the website at Simple Recovery First Responder Wellness in Newport.
Michael Koch, you're a good man. You're a great example for us, brother. Seriously, I'm blessed and honored for you to share your story.
Yeah,
I know it's hard, man. Now it felt like a therapy session for me.
Just now?
Yeah, man. I was hearing you, and I was going through some emotions with you, brother. Because I mean that the shame and the guilt and the sorrow and what people don't understand is what addiction, that drive that it makes us, and it doesn't make us, but we do dumb things to just get that next fix to get out of pain.
We do, and you don't understand how horrible it is, but there is help available. And the story that I want to say, and people to remember my story is it's horrible. It's fascinating to some people, whatever it is. It was horrific living it. It was so surreal. But I want to give out the story that there's the survival story, that you never give up. And all through along, when I got caught and I got arrested, and I did spend a night in jail, that was just, oh my gosh, that was just crazy. And I knew my life was going to change forever. But just knowing that there's hope. When you go through the academy, at least police officers, they usually have that one old picture of that pelican, and it's got that frog in its mouth, and the frog is like, all you see is the arms and legs sticking out of the mouth, and it's strangling the pelican, and it says never give up. I always thought of that, and I still think of that no matter what. So it's a story of survival, and I know the way out. You do too. And it's people like you that are promoting this stuff and getting it out there. And someone listening on their long drive to work, listen to a podcast, hey, this sparked something in me, like what you were saying, it brought me back. So thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great. I loved having you on my show. People check them out. It was a really, really great interview for sure.
Right on, man. Well, we're going to be in touch together. I appreciate you, Mike. Keep chasing the vase. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you too.